5 years into this battle. There's an understandable debate over whether the war was worth fighting, whether the fight is worth winning, and whether we can win it. The answers are clear to me. Removing Saddam Hussein from power was the right decision, and this is a fight America can and must win.
That was President Bush earlier today discussing the 5th anniversary of the start of the war in Iraq. Meanwhile, anti-war protests got a bit heated in Washington, D.C. Take a look.
Happy anniversary!
Lies! 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 We want the Constitution!
You want the Constitution back? Yeah. These guys are defending it, sweetheart. 2, 4, 6, 8. This is a police state.
We want war the least, okay? We want peace the most, because it's us that have to go and fight it, while you get to stay here in your nice, comfortable environment, protected under the very blanket of freedom of which we provide.
We want our Constitution back.
You're lucky.
Ooh. Joining us now is the host of War Stories, Colonel Oliver North. Colonel, thanks for being with us.
Kirsten, must be spring break time in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, exactly. So it's 5 years, and where were you 5 years ago when the war started?
5 years ago, right now, actually, I was on this broadcast. We were getting ready to go in on the biggest helo-borne assault in history, taking the Royal Marines over into the Foix Peninsula. And I went live on Hannity Colmes that night about 4 in the morning.
Did you have any expectation that it would be 5 years later and we'd be sitting here talking about it?
No, I think a lot of us all expected it was going to end a lot sooner than it did, and very clearly there were mistakes made, not the least of which was not recalling the Iraqi army, which fueled this insurgency.
Well, and let's think about it. Where do you think we'll be in 5 years? Let's say John McCain becomes president. Where do you think we'll be in 5 years in terms of the Iraq war?
Well, there's no doubt we'll have a victory in Iraq, which is something we not only can achieve, but we desperately need. Second of all, we'll probably have 25,000 to 30,000 Americans somewhere out in the desert training with the Iraqis and providing that kind of firewall that you need against the Iranians.
Well, and you know that Americans have heard a lot about how we would have victory in Iraq many times when the war began and many times since the wars began. What gives you the sense of optimism that we would be able to achieve something like that in the next 5 years?
Well, I've now spent, Kirsten, I've now spent more time in this war than I did when I was a young man leading Marines in a place called Viet Nam. I've now been over there 9 times. I've seen these extraordinary young Americans and what they've committed to do, this all-volunteer force. It's of higher quality than any military any country's ever had in history. Colonel, watched what they're doing out there with the Iraqis, and they're building a country that's going to be a very close ally of the United States in a jihad that was launched against us, unprovoked, I would point out, on 9/11.
Colonel, we have two presidential candidates saying that this war has failed. The leaders of Congress, Nancy Pelosi, Harry Reid, the war has failed. The surge has failed. At this particular point, you don't hear a lot about the war in the news media. That's all we heard about for a long time when we were debating the surge. Why aren't we hearing anything? Is it because it's been so successful?
Well, because when it's good news, it's no news coming out of Iraq. There's very little media out in the field with the troops where we go to produce specials like we've got coming up this Sunday. There's obviously a sense on the part of Senator Clinton that she wants to make sure everybody knows she's going to get our troops out of the war. She said it's a war we can't win. Today we had Senator Barack Obama claiming that our military is badly overstretched and that, quote, I promise I will immediately begin to remove our troops. Now, that's a formula for disaster in Iraq.
Yeah, but, you know, you spent more time with the troops. What impact does it have on their morale?
Well, thankfully, they don't get to watch much of the media. They don't hear the politicians. They occasionally
Well, when I was over there, they had
through.
Fox News on, Colonel.
Well, out where the guys are out there on the ground, they truly watch very little of the media because they're so intent on what their task is in front of them. Now, they'll gather around. When we've got our little satellite transceivers set up, they'll gather around and watch us.
Yeah.
But the reality of it is they're working 19, 20 hours a day, getting a little sleep, getting a little chow, and a lot of water this time of year.
No, I know, and a lot of Red Bull, if I remember. You told me that when you got back. All right, Colonel, stay right there. We'll take a break. We'll come back, and very special war stories coming up with Colonel